So why I say empathy, or I would call it an empathetic architecture, is that you start valuing everything in life. You value time, you'll value money, you value your clients, everything. And that's the best lesson is when you do it for yourself. Let me be very clear about this. We were very clear about being very contextual, understanding what we can source from every other in a radius of 1 kilometer or 2 max, not more than that. One, also considering the transportation cost was very high, so I have to calculate every aspect of it while I was doing this. You don't think about all this when you actually build. You said, get 40 people and get them. So the labor was an important aspect, so we had to get them. So my presentation is about something called designing without a client. I'm going to talk about something which is, what if a designer and the end user is practically the same person? I believe that's the best solution for any problem that you could face in architecture. That's about being very empathic about it. Right? So this is where I built a small house for me and my family. That's my wife and a young son. COVID was crazy for us. Nobody knew where would you be. Would you have a firm? Would you still practice? Would you still be alive? I took a plunge of going and seeing a small property. It came quite reasonable at that time because it was the best time to buy, off the grid of Bangalore, almost in the Tamil Nadu border, called Bagalur. It's an acre of land, but it's a farmland. So why I say empathy, or I would call it an empathetic architecture, is that you start valuing everything in life. You value time, you'll value money, you value your clients, everything. And that's the best lesson is when you do it for yourself. Because you know what, it just brings out the best and the worst version of you. So the project is called the Matchbox House. Matchbox, I will tell you why it is. That's the location of site. If you see, that's the site. It's sort of like an L shape. And I'll tell you why this sort of taught me a lot of things about empathy. Is starting from the way the site is, it's up an acre of land. I started thinking, where do I place the structure? What if, post-COVID, we end up shutting shop? So we said, let's bifurcate the land. One, in a portion where it's the quarter end of the site, so that everything goes kaput, I can sell the other 3/4 of an acre. Two, also locating the value of the trees that's there. 8 years, 9-year-old trees, retaining every aspect of the tree right there. So the site was located that way. The design development was as simple as, okay, this is a clear example of how it's not just the form that followed the function, but it was a sort of a conversation between both. We were sketching out the function, but yet also falling out on the form. So that it's a very clear narrative, because otherwise what happens is if you actually have a function sorted out, it almost falls like a flow chart. You can just keep, entry, living room, dining room, kitchen, blah, 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 extensions go all. So it's fair to think parallel. So that's how the whole thing started. The matchbox, because it was a simple way how a matchbox worked. It's 2 boxes which just went into each other, and one being the private space and one being the semi-private space. And of course, the lower box became sort of like the bedroom and the private areas with a courtyard by itself. Again, it evolved with, like I said, a sketch which developed as a form as well. If you see the plan, you can see there is a clear identity of these 2 walls and this box which enters into the space. The plan works this way. You come in, we've also realized at site, so let me be very clear about this. We were very clear about being very contextual, understanding what we can source from every other, in a radius of 1 kilometer or 2 max, not more than that. One, also considering the transportation cost was very high, so I have to calculate every aspect of it while I was doing this. Now, this is where the entire thing happened. You come in, you have an entrance space. This entire bay, what you're seeing, is the living and the dining space. And that's the private space, which is the 2 bedrooms. We have a small kitchen. We have a utilities storage space. We have got a small common toilet here. We've got an extra room, which became like the 3rd bedroom as well. These 2 bedrooms, which had its own private courtyards, toilets just beside it. It's a very simple grid. It's probably the smallest project we have done. It's only about 2,500 square feet, but that's the biggest heart. So we made sure these spaces work so well and so compact. I had an acre of land. I could just flaunt. I could just spread. I could do everything. But I had to work on every aspect from sizing, cost, and materials. So going ahead with this project, this is the 2nd floor. We have created a mezzanine. And we also have gridded in such a way, in terms of a future plan, I can add 2 more bedrooms. Now, this is the section. It's a double-height volume for the living room. That's the mezzanine on top. That's the bedroom and the courtyard. This is the section sway. Now, this is just an illustration of how the structure actually came up. So what are some of the models? Yeah. This is how the site was. The first thought process came in is when we went to the site. The site was quite clayey, so we realized, you know what, our first source of material is at site. We excavated, we saved every part of the site which we excavated. We used the entire earth, mixed it with about 20% of sand, 10% of cement only, and some lime water, and we started working on techniques of rammed earth. We found areas which is the bald spots. That was the area. It just went on. That's the soil that we recovered. We tried the rocks at site. It was too brittle. So the next year, there was somebody who was selling their old rocks. We bought them in. So everything was based on site. We had some fantastic team. We locally sourced people as well. Even the cost of the labor shed, which cost us about $1.5 lakh, pinched me. You don't think about all this when you actually build. You said, get 40 people and get them. So the labor was an important aspect. So we had to get them. We started building those walls, blah, blah, blah. This is how this started developing. That stone represents my childhood home, which was completely built out of granite, so I wanted that element back. We tried a lot of plaster from site. We started making arches based on jack arches. We've used templates made at site, the plywood, extra plywood, which was bought for the doors and the windows, converted into 16 mm. You know everything, right? Now it's 16 mm rods to 6 mm ties to 3 mm, so and so forth, because you've vested so much into this property. We built the jack arches. The walls came up. These are massive 28 feet high walls. Everybody was learning everything at site. Some of the raw spaces inside. We've carved a rock into wash basins. We've polished the raw floor. Got an MS work done from a local fabricator. Everything was bent, but then you know what? I can't pay for it again, so I've survived. Used raw steel to make doors. These are foldable doors, which sort of opens out the entire house, across. These were raw plywood, so we didn't want to put, no veneer, no laminate, nothing. We just used plywood, just polished it, made doors out of it, so that all the electricals would run between that. No one was hurt while doing that, but then he was just doing the cleaning. We had great height, so we played with the lights. I had a lot of extra samples from a lot of sites. We cut all of those tiles. We used it as flooring. We had an inspiration from a light. We sketched it so the light looks like a 3D and like an artwork on that wall. All the old chapti columns, which was there in the entire 1 acre of land, was sourced, made paving area spaces. All the leftover sites was used for making tables around. Landscape popped up, and eventually turned out to be a space that we love. That portion is the door that I said, which can collapse into a massive door, which can go that side. Only because if somebody else buys the property on the other side, I can at least look this side. So it's a lot of thought exactly that way. All my old collection of furniture, That's the furniture that we designed. All these furnitures are designed by us. Those are ones which were picked up on the way. That's the chair which we designed again for the space. Love. And there you go. I've got 12 seconds. That's the rooms, the toilets, the washrooms, the courtyards, the earth wall. That's how the Matchbox sits. That's the team. Like Hiren rightly said, we have about 80-90% women in our team. This is the only 2 interns where they were boys, because every Sunday, all these guys were there. And there was a small, a place where we used to have breakfast, and that gives to wonder, this guy is running some shady business, because every time this old man comes, there is this young girl with him. So it's quite difficult to explain to him what architecture was all about, but then this is a beautiful illustration that's done. So there's 2 take to this. There's an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is that you learn empathy a lot. You learn the value of everything. When you become a client, you start respecting. The biggest disadvantage is that you don't get paid for it. Thank you.